Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, good evening. We are back in Mishpat Tzedek. And if you remember last week's shiur, I ended up jumping somewhere where I shouldn't yet have jumped. And so I told you last week that we would be coming back to the right place this week. And so that's exactly what we are going to do. If you can look in the source sheet, so it should be attached to your invitation on Zoom. It should take you to Sefaria. And I want to be with you in source 21, which is also in the laws of Sanhedrin, chapter 21. You with me? Source 21, that's Sanhedrin, chapter 21, halakha 10. We are discussing the pasuk from Shemot, which talks about midvar sheker tirchak, how one has an obligation to distance themselves from falsehood. And whereas that may be a general obligation for humanity, in particular as it relates to this class of Mishpat Tzedek, we're taking it apart in terms of the laws of Sanhedrin. And so I'm choosing the last few halachot, which invoke the usage of this pasuk, midvar sheker tirchak. The next one on my list is in chapter 21 of the Rambam's Laws of Sanhedrin, halakha yod number 10. We mentioned last time meaning last time we spoke about execution. But last time we spoke about this pasuk, about the prohibition of the dayan to hear one side of the story without the other party being present. You remember that prohibition? Shamoa ben achechem. That you have an obligation to hear the words of judgment when both parties are present. The Rambam continues in that same chapter and tells us the following. Minayin. From where do we know, ladayan, that the judge shelo yaseh melitz lidvarav, that the judge should not make a melitz is like a it's to recommend, to help, to support. The judge should not support the words of one of the parties that are present in front of the bedin. Taluma lomar midvar sheker tirchak. We learn, the Torah says, midvar sheker tirchak, you must distance yourself from falsehood. Ella, rather, what should he do? Yomar ma shenireh lo, v'yishtok, v'lo yilamed echad mibale dinin ta'ana kelan. It's improper for the judge to help the party that is in front of him present his arguments. You don't help. Rather, you let them talk and you listen. This is a very important rule all across the board for many people. I noticed that when people speak with each other, they never let other people finish talking. And not like the Rabbani. My wife always says that when she dated me, I asked her, and why do you keep interrupting me? And she said, because if I didn't interrupt you, I would never have a chance to talk. I don't mean that kind of situation. Usually we help people. When they talk to us, we help them finish their sentences, we help them complete their thoughts, but we're not actually doing them a service. Let them speak, whatever they plan to speak. Let another person speak. Here in the court, it's even more important that the judge should not help any of the parties share their story better than they would do it on their own. And he should not help any of those in front of him argue their case better. Ta'ana is like a legal way to speak. maybe you'll understand this a little. When you go to court, there are all kinds of ways that you present the same information, but the way that you present the information is very important. The way you present something, the way you explain something, or maybe better yet, the way you don't or say or you don't explain something. All of those things affect very much the way that the court understands your arguments or the way you may win or lose. It is forbidden for the dayan to get involved in helping one of the parties in front of him argue their case. Afilu hevi bal din ed echad. Even if the bal din, one of the parties, brings as a witness a single witness. What do we know about witnesses? How many witnesses do you have to have? Two. You have to have two kasher witnesses. Now this person only brings one witness. Lo yomar lo, the judge shouldn't tell him, En mekablim min echad, don't worry, he only has one witness. Don't say that. Your job as the judge is not to defend either party in the story here. Ele yomar lenit'an. Rather, he should tell the person, hey, I have a witness that testifies that you did something. In the hopes that maybe the person will say, you know what, he's right. I did say that. I did do that. I did take that. The person will admit to their crime. You don't say anything unless the other party says, hey, it's only one witness. You can't trust one witness about me. And this is similar to all other cases that can be compared to this one. So tell me the story. Person comes to court and they're speaking in front of the judge. The judge is not supposed to help them argue their case better or worse. Just don't get involved. Your job as the judge is to listen and then to judge. Tell me the story about the witnesses. So somebody brings a witness to court, and the witness is not valid to give testimony really because there's only one witness. So what is the dayan hoping to accomplish by letting one witness talk?
Hopefully by having one witness talk, it creates awareness and possibly pressure on the defendant, so to speak, to maybe own up. And now that the witness is talking and it's being publicized, this matter. And if there's one witness, maybe there's another witness that's going to be able to be brought forward, and therefore I should just settle this, claim, paying what I owe him, or whatever the case may be. Sorry, I jumped in. I missed the first full chunk. I have no idea.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, good. What
you're saying.
I mean, usually I would tell people don't jump in if you missed the first chunk, but you did a good job. So we're saying here that a person, the one witness is not enough to rule based on the testimony of that witness, but we're hoping that the witness will pressure, inspire, whatever word you want to use that makes you feel good, will pressure the person to admit the wrongdoing. And that way the truth will come out, even if that's not the way that the truth should come out, but it's not the job of the judge to get involved in helping either side make their case or defend their case. That's not the job of the judge. This rolls over into the next halakha. Maybe I can give a little hagdama here.
Just pause. Sorry, I missed the first 5.
Laws of Sanhedrin, chapter 21.
Where are we?
Laws of Sanhedrin, chapter 21, halakha 10.
Okay, thank you.
And if you want, in our source sheet of Mishpat Tzedek, Shemot 23, it's also source 21. Give me 1 second at the door, 1 second. So this next halakha requires a little bit of an introduction because I don't want anyone to get confused. Most of us are likely familiar with Western law. In Jewish law, the way that the legal system works is as follows. There is a judge, and there are two parties before the judge. And those two parties speak directly to the judge. Directly. In Jewish law, the fact that the Western world finds it so common that people who are on trial do not speak on their own, but rather they only speak through professional speakers, call them lawyers, attorneys, is not a good thing in the eyes of Halakha. The job of an attorney in Jewish law exists somewhere else. We're going to study this right now, but understand that for the most part, the job of the judge is to interrogate witnesses and facilitate conversation between the two parties. So usually what you find lawyers doing in American courts is what the judge does in a Jewish court. Let's read the halakha together. ראה הדיין זכות לאחד מהן. If the dayan sees, the judge sees that one of the parties has a good argument, has zechut, has merit, ובעל דין מבקש לאומרה, ואינו יודע לחבר הדברים, and he sees that that party is trying to share their side of the story, but they don't know how to do it properly. They don't know how to argue something coherently. או שראה אותו מצטער להציל עצמו בטענת אמת. Or he saw that he was having a difficult time explaining clearly, articulating his argument, ומפני החמה והכעס נסתלקה ממנו, or because of the anger, the pressure, the heat, the anxiety, some reason is stopping him from being able to eloquently express himself. או נשתבש מפני הסכלות, or it all got messed up because of his weak mind. הרי זה מותר להציל עצמו, הרי זה מותר לסעדו מעט ולהבינו תחילת הדבר. You're able to help him a little bit. Just push him along gently. So he'll make his argument correctly, gently. משום פתח פיך לאילם. The pasuk in Mishle is used here to show that there is time when you can help the mute person open his mouth, and that's what the judge here is doing. וצריך להתיישב בדבר הזה הרבה. Somebody should spend a lot of time pondering whether this is the right thing to do. שלא יהיה כאורחי הדיינים, so that the judge will not be like a lawyer. Okay, now let's talk about the judge and the lawyer. Who knows where else in the Mishnah we are warned against being like a lawyer?
I also missed the beginning, but isn't it that they talk about Shimon ben Shattach in Mishnah?
This is what?
The Mishnah, I think Shimon ben Shattach, he says that to question the witnesses carefully.
Very good. Yehuda ben Tabai Omer. Yehuda ben Tabai says, אל תעש עצמך כאורחי הדיינים. Do not make yourself like a lawyer. What does that mean to be like a lawyer? Now, stop. If there's anybody who's a lawyer here, I'm not here to say don't be like you. I'm not here to offend you. It's not the purpose of the shiur. I'm simply quoting the Mishnah and trying to understand what does the Mishnah mean. In the addition, not to take sides. Okay, so the judge is not allowed to take sides. That's right. He has a separate prohibition about this. What does not being like a lawyer come to teach you? Meaning, what does a lawyer do? What is their job? If the wait, let's pause. If the job in the Jewish court is not for the lawyer to represent his client, because that's not what lawyers do. Lawyers don't go to court in halakha and argue the case in front of the judge. It's not what a lawyer does. What is the job of a lawyer in halakha? Maybe tell me this, and we'll tell you what the judge is not supposed to do.
Support his client.
Let's look together. Actually, you don't have it in front of you. I'll read it to you. Rabbeinu Rambam writes the following. The commentary of the Mishnah Avot, chapter 1, Mishnah 8. Rabbeinu Rambam writes, Hem anashim halomdim et Torah hitdainut. They are people that learn the laws of hitdainut. What is that? Lehitdayin. They learn all of the legalities of court, how courts work. כדי שיהיו מורשים לבני אדם לייעץ להם בדיניהם, so that people, I see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the shiur to be choppy at the beginning. So that they will help their clients with their legal problems. והם משערים אילו שאלות ישאל השופט, ומייעצים מה להשיב. And they tell you, listen, likely in your case, the judge is going to ask A, B, C, D. They're going to ask 1, 2, 3, 4. And you should answer them exactly X, Y, Z, 5, 6, 7. That's your job. וכן באשר לטענות בעל הדין שכנגד. Also, their job is to prepare you for what your opponent in court might also say and how to respond to them. והזהיר את השופטים מהידמות להם. And he warns the judges from being like them. רצונו לומר, שילמד אחד מבעלי הדין טענה שתועילהו. He warns the judges from helping their people in front of them in court from helping those parties. Maybe I should pause here. So the job of the attorney in halakha is not to argue your case in front of the judge, but rather their job is to prepare you how to argue your case in front of the judge. It's a different job. It's similar. I'm sure that attorneys do this also. Sometimes you'll see maybe attorneys who are preparing witnesses to take the stand. What do they tell the witnesses? Do I have any attorneys in the shiur tonight? Yes.
Probably answer only the question they asked, not more.
Exactly. They tell them what to answer, not to talk too much, not to share things that were not requested of them, how to share the things that they're going to share, and which words to use, what language not to use. That's the job. What does the word orech din mean? I don't know what lawyer means in English, but in Hebrew, what does orech din mean? What is an orech?
מסדר את העניינים.
Okay, in English.
Instructions.
Okay.
Method, how to get into it.
What does it mean, orech? You just said it in Hebrew. Why not in English?
לסדר, to organize.
To organize, to prepare. An editor is an orech. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan, prepare a table before me, to set something, to put everything in order. The job of the attorney in halakha is to make sure, the orech din, that when you come to the judgment, you are prepared. How to speak, how not to speak, what to say, what not to say, what to mention, how to say what you want to say, all of those things, that's their job. And we are warning the judges, don't be like that. ויאמר לו, אמור כך, או יקחש באופן כזה, say this, or reject it by saying that. אפילו ידע שהוא עשוק. Even if the judge knows that this person is being oppressed, meaning he is the victim here in this case. Even in that scenario, ושבעל דינו טוען עליו בשקר, and that the one is complaining about him is a liar. אין מותר לו ללמדו טענה שתצינהו בשום פנים. It is forbidden for the judge to help the person in court argue their case in any way. So here you have seemingly two contradicting ideas. One, which is the judge should not get involved at all. And one is that the judge should get involved a little bit to help the person who is being taken advantage of and is having a hard time presenting their case. The judge is not supposed to help him completely, but rather, what is the judge allowed to do? That was a question that means you can answer it. I don't mind awkward silence. What is the judge allowed to do? Halakha 11, what do we say?
Allowed to just guide him, give him some structure, but not lead him into saying something.
Very good. Guide him a little bit, push him a little bit, but not anything more than that. And the Rambam ends off with, and you should take this very seriously, because you don't want to end up saying too much, doing too much, in which case you are now becoming the lawyer and not the judge. All of these halachot are connected to the pasuk of midvar sheker tirchak. In general, our Chachamim did not appreciate other people being involved in the court case that were not parties of the case. I told you this once. I once watched a court case where the man just wanted to talk to the judge directly. Something he wanted to say to the judge. And the judge warned him, I advise you not to speak to me directly, but only to speak to me through your counsel. I cannot encourage you enough. Do not speak to me directly. Only speak to me through your counsel. What is the judge trying to do in that case? Why is he telling him to speak only through his counsel?
To prevent him from incriminating himself.
Very good. To prevent him from saying something he shouldn't say and he won't be able to take back later. That's a good thing, technically, on its own. On the flip side, why is this man trying to speak instead of his lawyer? Why?
Maybe you feel if a lawyer isn't presenting the case the way he really feels he wants it to be presented.
Very good. And why would the lawyer not present the case the same way the defendant is presenting the case? What's the simplest reason?
He's not personally involved.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the lawyer's going to go back home to his wife and kids. And this guy is going to be escorted back in an orange jumpsuit to prison. Our Chachamim could never get behind a system where somebody who has nothing to lose, somebody who has no skin in the game aside from money, is going to be considered the responsible party in a lawsuit. Why? Why should there be a situation where somebody aside from you should speak for you? And if we've built a legal system where a regular person cannot speak in regular language to a judge and come out innocent because the way that regular people speak will somehow get you in trouble, then that says a lot more about the problem of your legal system than it does about this person not speaking through their counsel. Our Chachamim in general, there is room, there are times, in the laws of partnerships, for example, there are times where people can have other people present their case for them. They don't feel competent to do that. But our Chachamim didn't like it. They didn't like any place where somebody who is not a party to this matter is getting involved. And you can only imagine that that's something that has many ramifications across the board. Our legal system and the legal system of our Chachamim, or I should say our legal system and the legal system of the West, they they don't see eye to eye on this matter. It can't be that somebody wants to spill their heart out to the judge, and that could be dangerous for them. The job of the judge is to know how to listen to information, how to weigh information, how to evaluate the things, the feelings, the emotions, all of those things. But I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. How often do you hear people that are on trial and their counsel tells them, we don't want you to take the stand. Whatever you do, don't take the stand. Meaning, I never want you to be there in front of the judge. I don't want, but his life is on the line. His money's on his marriage on the line. Something's on the line. Of all the people you want to hear from today, that should be the person you want to hear from. And therefore, our Chachamim are warned against playing the lawyer instead of playing the judge. Any questions on this before I jump to our next halacha? Tov, now that you're with me, let's continue on to the next source that I have there. It should say source 22, correct? The first word of source 22 is? To all my friends. But tell me. Oh, v'chen. Very good, v'chen. V'chen means what, Rabbi Chesky? What does v'chen mean? And so too. So in order for me to do and so too, I have to do the halakha before it. Even though the halakha before it is not really connected to this one. But Rabbeinu Rambam seems to imply that they flow into each other. So forgive me if I ask you to click on that link and go back one halakha, which is essentially the Rambam Laws of Sanhedrin, chapter 22, halakha aleph, number 1. Okay. You see this? Halakha 1 of chapter 22? If there's someone who has a Safari link and you're comfortable sharing it in the chat box, please do that for the other people who may find it useful to click on something. Says Rabbeinu Rambam, Shnayim sheba'u lefanecha ladin. You're a judge in the Sanhedrin now. 2 people come before you, not a Sanhedrin, you're a judge. 2 people come before you for judgment. Echad rach, ve'echad kashe. One soft and one hard. What does it mean, one soft and one hard?
One's like confident, and one is, I guess, very, stage fright.
Okay, let's for sure say that the one who's soft is the one with stage fright. The one who's confident, though, the Rambam is using the word kashe in an aggressive. That's the word, aggressive. He's aggressive. How aggressive is this person? There's a famous machloket, Rashi and Tosafot. Rashi says aggressive, meaning he's annoying, problematic, keep coming back and bothering you. Tosafot say no, aggressive as in he's dangerous. He's the kind of person that if you rule against him, he might hurt you. Rabbeinu Rambam seems to feel like the second one, interpret the second one. Ad shelo tishma divrehem. O shitishma divrehem ve'en ata yodea le'echan hadin notev. If you didn't yet hear their arguments, or you heard their arguments, but you don't yet know which of them is the correct party, or the guilty party, or the innocent party. Ata rashai lomar lehem, you have the legal right to tell them, Eni niskak lachem. Eni niskak lachem means?
I don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
I don't want your argument.
I don't want it, meaning I don't want it. I don't want to judge you. I want to excuse myself from this judgment. Shema yitchaye. Yeah, go find some. I don't need you. Go find somebody else. Shema yitchaye v'chazak, because maybe the aggressive man will be guilty. V'nimtza rodef achar hadayan, and he will turn around and torment the judge. He'll chase the judge. He'll harm him. So here's the story. You have a judge sitting in the bedin. Two people come before the judge. The judge does not know which of them is guilty and which of them is innocent. In fact, he may not have even heard the court case at all. All he knows is that guy over there on the right. Wow. If he loses, I'm afraid he's going to come after me. The judge has an obligation. Lo taguru mipnei ish, not to have fear from anybody. You remember last Shabbat I spoke from Rabbi Ben Amozed. The word lagur, Avraham goes lagur in Egypt. Gur in Hebrew has many meanings, and almost all of them are connected to each other. But this particular usage of the word gur means to be afraid. Who remembers what Rabbi Ben Amozed told us about lagur? It's important you should know. Avraham Avinu is going down to Egypt. Lagur means a few words.
To live there temporarily.
Okay, temporary living. Okay. Well, that's why a ger is that. It's connected because of that. Yeah. What else? What I said in the drasha. If you didn't hear it, then don't say it. But you were there, Ima. So what did I say?
I don't remember.
That. Lagur, little lion cub, for example, is a gur aryeh. Le'egor, to gather. People yaguru alai, they've gathered around me to harm me. A few other words connected to gur. What you find is that the word gur implies small groups of people who gather together out of fear, possibly of the consequences of what they're doing. Rabbi Ben Amozeg argues that everywhere in the world there were groups of people that were non-Jews who believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who had to go hide themselves and their families in caves and mountains and deserts away from general civilization. And they found a safe place, and essentially their new nation, their new religion almost, consisted of a father and a mother and their children. It was their family. And these little family units were always people who believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but could not mingle into the rest of society because of that. It's possible that Avraham Avinu was going down to Egypt, and that on going down to Egypt, Avraham Avinu looked for such people who already knew HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who were involved in some capacity, and therefore removed themselves from society. And Avraham Avinu didn't go to dwell in Egypt proper, but lagur, there's something to do with who Avraham Avinu goes to live with. Now this is not far-fetched for Rabbi Ben Amozeg, because in general, Rabbi Ben Amozeg believes that across the world there always were small groups of people who believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were not Jewish, but they believed in him and served him and were connected in some capacity to Am Yisrael. For those of you in my Shabbat afternoon class, those people are not called Bnei Noach. That's an incorrect term used today all over the Jewish world. Those people were called Yirei Hashem. Yirei Adonai, Baruchut Adonai. Right? We always say, David HaMelech talks about the house of Levi, the house of Aaron, the house of Israel, and there is no house because these are not one nation. It's not one family, but it's many individuals who are God-fearers, and David HaMelech calls to them that they also should bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those people are Yirei Adonai. For those in my shiur, the people who make the bad clips about me, they don't like this one. For those in my shiur, we mentioned that in the New Testament, Paul makes it a habit to go look for these people. For example, where did I point that out? Anybody here from my Shabbat class? In the book of Acts, Paul goes near a river. He assumes that over there are going to be people that are praying to the God of Israel. He knows in Greek there's this word I'm mispronouncing for sure. Proswekes, I think is the word. Proswekes, I don't know how you say that word in Greek. But that place over there is a place where non-Jewish people gathered to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a monotheistic fashion. and he knows there are going to be people that believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he goes to find them. And he goes to find them after a trip to Macedonia. He goes to find them. He finds a righteous woman named Lydia, and he tells her all about Yeshu. And this whole story is part of the early Christians preying on people who otherwise believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and stayed away from Avodah Zarah. But they were easy victims because they're coming to represent the Jewish nation. They're coming to represent Jerusalem, or what's being taught in Jerusalem, according to them, to the people in the world who are vulnerable and want that message. This is such a deviation from what I'm teaching you here in the Rambam's Laws of Sanhedrin. But if you care about this topic, this is definitely something you should come on Shabbat so you could learn Rabbi Eliyahu ben Amozeg with us here in the Beit HaKnesset. Lagur. He's afraid. Dayan has a prohibition of being afraid. So why is he allowed to excuse himself in this scenario here? What does the Rambam tell us? In which he has a time limit until when he's allowed to excuse himself. What is that time limit? He hasn't heard the case, or he heard the case, but
from the Dayanim.
He hasn't decided yet. I mean, he doesn't know which direction to go yet. Look in the next part. Aval meshetishma divrehem. But the moment you hear their arguments, v'tedal hechan hadinoteh, and you already know which direction this court case is going to go. You don't have the right to say, I don't want to get involved. Like it says, Lo tagu mipenei ish. Have fear from no man. Shelo tomar, don't say, Ish peloni rashahu. This person, he's an evil man. Shema yaharog et beni. Maybe he'll kill the judge's son. Shema yadlik et gidishi. Maybe he will light my... What are gidishi? What is he saying?
The wheat.
I harvested all these bundles. He's gonna light them on fire. Shema yiktzotz netiotai. Maybe he will cut my trees. Either he will harm me, he'll harm my family, he'll harm my property. That's how dangerous this person is. By the way, if you think that violence is new to the Jewish community, unfortunately, this is a problem that is not new. It's a problem that's very old. The Dayanim were always worried about what happens to that crazy person in court. They're going to be afraid to rule by them. And that person is going to harm either the Dayan's family or the Dayan's property. And he says, I don't want to do it. You can't say that. Vim haya mimune larabim. And if he was a judge that was appointed by society, by the masses, chayav lehizakek lahem. He has an obligation to listen to the court case even if he is afraid. So let's separate those two things. The Rambam tells you how violent is the person that you're up against right now. How violent are they?
There's a real threat to physical harm or property harm.
It's a real threat. Meaning it's not some guy, unlike Rashi saying maybe he's going to harass you. It's not harassment. This is danger. He could hurt my child. He could hurt my house. He could hurt my plants. My parnasa. What is the judgment? He makes his money not from the judgment. He makes his money from the things that are in the field. This person could really harm the judge.
But this is like Olam Tachton.
Yeah. Who are you up against? You're up against the criminal underworld. Look, I have a cousin. I did her wedding. I married her. She is today a prosecutor in Israel. And she was a prosecutor. Now she's a judge. Yeah, but in the days where she prosecuted over criminal cases with the mafia families in Israel, don't think there are no mafia families in Israel. They just, sometimes instead of having mob last names like you're used to over here, they just have Jewish last names like you might be used to somewhere else. In all of those situations, a person is afraid to judge because they don't know what will happen to them. And so you're allowed to excuse yourself until you heard the case, or if you heard the case but you don't yet understand. But once you know where this case is going to go, you are forbidden from excusing yourself. Unless, what's the condition?
If you're a judge that was appointed,
If you-
you are, I guess, you're not a small town judge, ragtag group of ragtag beaters. This is
if you are not a, what does someone call me this week? A sham bedin. If you are not a small-time bedin, you're not a private bedin, then you don't have the right to excuse yourself from difficult cases. So maybe let's make some order here. There clearly are two kinds of batei din. Bedin number one, it's the local rabbi in the Bet HaKnesset. I don't know, people are fighting with each other in the community. They say, Rabbi, come, help us figure out our dispute. So okay, listen, they come to tefillah, let's listen. The guy brings his business partner, and he says his business partner is a scary-looking guy. He asks him a few questions. Says, yeah, I got that tattoo on my forehead when I was in prison. What were you in prison for? I served time for murdering somebody, part of my gang activity back in the day. And the rabbi tells his congregation, listen, I love you very much. I do not want to get involved in this story. That is not a violation of lo taguru mipnei ish. That's him taking care of himself. But the moment he hears that, I'm willing to hear, I want to get involved. He gets involved. Now he knows who the criminal is. He's not allowed to excuse himself anymore. That is true only for a private judge. But the judge who's in the bedin, who is appointed by society to make law and order, that person is not allowed to excuse themselves from a court case. Why not?
Well, then the criminals will just run amok unchallenged. If every single judge is afraid to render judgment, then there's no law.
Very good.
It's the case now.
Radbaz says something very interesting. Radbaz writes, because he's not afraid of the criminal, because society has got his back. Okay. Because society appointed him, so they have his back. Rabbi Chaim David Halevi doesn't like this. So what does it help that society has the back? They're going to pay a shiva call? They're going to help him rebuild his farm? What good is it that society has his back? Rather, he says what Rabbi Binyamin just said. The Bach writes that this is part of running a normal society, that you have to deal with criminals. And the moment that the criminals know that if they're too scary, all the judges are going to excuse themselves, then you're going to have a country full of crime. And maybe you don't have to take the job as a dayan. But the moment you take the job as a dayan, your responsibility is to ensure there's law and order. What does it help to have a court system if the judges are too scared to actually get involved in cases where it matters? Maran, for example, in the Bet Yosef, Maran has a case where he quotes the Rashba. Rashba was asked about a bedin. There was a bedin that one of the parties in the bedin threatened the bedin with their life. And the Rashba says, sorry, that doesn't get you off the hook. You are the bedin of the place. You don't get to say, I'm too scared to get involved. You get involved. That's your job. He had two interesting scenarios. One, like we said already, because if you don't, what's going to happen to law and order? But the second was, maybe the criminal is full of hot air. A lot of people threaten a lot of people. They don't actually do anything about it. You threaten somebody, good. They take it with a grain of salt. Not everybody that threatens you actually poses a credible threat. And based on those things, Maran rules that a judge is not allowed to, a judge on a bedin, the bedin cannot excuse themselves from actually helping this people from their problems. And this created a tremendous amount of drama in rabbinic literature as to whether or not it is proper for a dayan, when can a dayan excuse himself from a case. I want maybe one more halakha that you might not think of when a judge is allowed to excuse himself from a court case. And here, I now have an answer for almost every rabbi in the world why he doesn't have to get involved in almost any problem in the world. I found the way, lamed zechut, to judge everybody favorably, why they don't get involved. But the flip side of this, I'm going to say dangerous, is if I'm right, then every rabbi is off the hook from getting involved, but also every woman can become a rabbi. I said it. I didn't say that. I just said it. Now I'll explain to you what I mean. There's a Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin. Chachamim write Masechet Sanhedrin. Let me pull out the Gemara. If you want to look in your Sefaria, for example, and somebody wants to send a link to the group, Masechet Sanhedrin, the bottom of Chavchet Amud Bet, the bottom of page 28b. Is a judge allowed to preside over a court case where one of the parties are his relatives? What do you think?
No.
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 Why not?
Conflict of interest.
Might change the-
Yeah, it's a classic conflict of interest. He might lean the law. He has to excuse himself. Everybody would agree that morally, a judge has to excuse themselves from being involved in such a court case. What happened?
Mishpat, remember the Rabbanim that he said he doesn't want to preside over the case because someone brought him fruits from his garden.
Okay, but here, let's say it's not bribery. This is just they're related to each other. Give me a scenario where somebody is related to somebody, and now they're no longer related to them.
Divorce.
Okay, divorce. What about the see? There you could argue that it's going to be a conflict of interest in the other direction. Maybe he wants to get back at his wife's family, correct? But it's close. It's close. A close scenario. Look at the bottom of Masechet Sanhedrin, page 28b. Bnei Chamuha de Mar Ukva. The sons of Mar Ukva's father-in-law. Krovim v'nitrachaku havu. They were relatives who then became distant. They were no longer relatives. Let's make some order. Here's Mar Ukva. His father-in-law means his wife's father. So his wife's father's sons came to court. Who are his wife's father's sons?
Brother-in-law.
His brothers-in-law, right? So they come to court. They used to be related. Now they're not related anymore because Kirovim hayu, they were relatives, and now nintrachaku. How so?
Widow.
Very good. Lo alenu. Mar Ukva's wife died. Is a person still related to their wife's relatives when she's no longer alive?
Not really.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Not really.
But this is something I should just tell you. It's a very unfortunate part of the world where people who have passed, the relationship now between that family. I'll give you an example. Now in the war, there are a few widows who have children, and their husbands died in war, and now they got remarried. Understand? So a woman, let's give her a name, Sarah, is married to Abraham. Abraham dies at battle. Now Sarah marries David. Okay? Abraham's parents are her children's grandparents, correct?
Yeah.
But what are they to her new husband?
Okay.
Nothing. Are they family?
No.
I mean, they're gonna share grandkids. His new stepchildren are the grandchildren of the people that he's not related to.
But they're step, meaning that forbid he passed away, they're not sitting Shiva on thing.
Okay, so we're not at Shiva, but I put Shiva. Like, you're right.
No, but I'm saying they're not related.
They're not really related.
But I think in the case of marriage, they are considered related.
Tell me what you mean, Baruch.
So, like, they could not marry a relative of his because that would be considered being their relative, even though it's not.
Of the grandkids, but I'm talking now about the new husband, David. What is he to them? There are people that you might consider part of our greater family, but in terms of are they actually family, maybe not. A more likely scenario, imagine that Sarah didn't have any children. She doesn't have children. She was married to Abraham. Abraham dies. Now she marries David. Do we invite Abraham's parents to the wedding?
food, but
Is it-
Depends.
but they're
Yeah, this is a complicated. By the way, you should know when you see this a lot. If I'm not mistaken, I hope, please correct me if I'm wrong. This soldier whose body we got back this week, Alam B'Shalom, he had a girlfriend, no?
right.
He was engaged.
He was engaged to her. Yeah, you signed her. I didn't see anything from her this week.
So he was engaged to her, and he wrote even the invitation for the wedding already.
Okay, but when was he kidnapped? When was he kidnapped?
2014.
2014.
He died.
Right. I remember because I was not in Israel anymore, but I remember that story like it was yesterday. Okay, tell me, Rachel, what did she say this week in the interview?
So I got this week, but I saw her an interview with her before they actually brought the body. She got married and she invited his parents. She keeps in touch with them.
Okay, so I remember when they decided that he was dead. Then maybe I saw an interview with her maybe in 2015 or 2016, sometime back then, and
Can I tell you something? She became a widow of war, even she never married him.
oh, that was
The law in Israel.
That was the question. The question was, she was arguing a case for, is she considered a widow of war? But forget on a legal basis. I'm not talking on a legal basis. She now shows up to the funeral. As what? What is she?
At the beginning, not married.
Until they get married, she's not family. But she experienced a loss, just like somebody who, if a day before she had gotten married, everybody would understand that she's a widow. But she didn't make it that far.
The consent to get married.
Yeah, but halakhically she was not.
So what I'm telling you is there are scenarios where you feel emotionally one way. The question is, legally, does that make now someone has to excuse themselves from the court case because there was some family connection like that. Ma'ukva says, I don't want to, he says, Atu lekameh ledina, they come to Ma'ukva for din. Amar lehu, Ma'ukva said to them, Pesilna lechu ledina. I am disqualified from rendering judgment for you. I have to excuse myself. Amule, they told him, my da'atech, what is your reasoning? Ki Rabbi Yehuda, are you ruling halakha? According to Rabbi Yehuda said that somebody who was married and that wife leaves children, even though she dies, they're still considered family. Anu maitinan igarta mima'arava. We'll bring you a letter from the Chachamim in the west, meaning in Eretz Israel. De'en halakha ki Rabbi Yehuda. That letter says the halakha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Amar lahu, Ma'ukva said to them, Atu bekaba dekira idabakna bechu. Was I permanently glued to you with wax when I married your sister? Like, I can't ever get rid of you? Is that what you're trying to tell me? I agree with you that we're not related to each other since she died. I get it. I accept your logic. The reason I say that I'm excused from judging you, that I cannot be your judge, is not because I'm related to you. Ela mishum delo tzaititu dina. Rather, it is because I know you. The way that you treat me, you're never going to listen to any ruling that I rule in my bedin. So why is he excusing himself from judgment?
Because he doesn't believe that they'll actually follow through and accept the judgment that's being rendered.
Because he doesn't believe they're actually going to follow through. The Chida, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, alav shalom. He writes that not only is a Dayan allowed to excuse himself in a scenario where he knows that the people will not listen to the Bedin, he argues it's a mitzvah for him to excuse himself when people will not listen to the ruling of the Bedin. In such a scenario, you have to say, I can now judge many, many rabbis favorably. Why? Because nobody listens to them. So they say what they want, like, frogs chirp in a creek or birds chirping in a tree, and ribbit, 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 but nobody listens to them. So they don't have to get involved in anything because nobody listens to them anyways. And this way, I judge people favorably. I see problems in the community. I see problems in Am Yisrael. I see, okay, what can they do? They're just the chief rabbi. Who listens to the chief rabbi? Right? That kind of feeling, I judge everybody favorably with it. But if that's true, I think I'm right that a lot of people I'm going to give you an example now. If somebody were to come to me in my Kehillat, when I say my Kehillat, I mean here in this room, Kehillat HaShamayim. On Shabbat, I said something, and I didn't mean to offend anybody, but I said it anyways. I said, I know everybody who's in my Beit HaKnesset, and if you're sitting here, it's because I want you here. Because if I didn't want you here, I know exactly how to ask people how to leave. I've done it before, I'll do it again. I am very happy to ask people not to come to my Kehillat. I'm not that kind of rabbi. This Kehillat is too precious to me to let anybody who wants just walk through the door. I don't let. That being said, I also have to take responsibility. If there's a problem in the Kehillah, then it's my problem also. I can't pretend that there's not. Baruch Hashem. Hashem has blessed me. You should know, I'm luckier pretty much than any other rabbi in the world. I could say it for and I admit I can tell you. The people that come to this Beit HaKnesset, anybody who's been here before, you know. But if you haven't been here before, I'll tell you. And I'm an unbiased party in this story. Everybody who comes here, everybody's better than the other one. It's not that I have favorites. Everybody in Mamash is my favorite. I enjoy coming to the Beit HaKnesset. I enjoy spending time with the people who are here. People try something, they reach out, we want to come, we want to move to here, we want to move to there, a big job. Remember, what you have over there is a lot of money, you have a big building, but what you don't have my people. The people that built this Kehillah with me, that are here with me, they don't exist anywhere else. And for that reason, they don't make drama. They don't make the problems. The drama we have in the Beit HaKnesset is nothing. It's nothing. It's jokes of drama. Nobody fights with each other. Nobody hates anybody. Nobody picks on anybody. Right? It doesn't work like that. But if, God forbid, such a thing were to happen, somebody in the community would have the right to tell me, you need to get involved. Because likely, I would believe that in the Kehillah, people would listen to what I would say. But if I'm right, that all the rabbis can get off the hook, then someone explain to me my sentence then, that now women can become rabbis. Tell me.
The logic, I think, behind why they can't is because they can't have authority. It's supposed to be a position of authority over the community, over men or something like that. But people aren't giving them authority anyways, then what difference does it make? The title's just a title for title's sake, not for actual authority.
Very good. The whole argument, thank you, Benjamin, that women cannot be rabbis. And by the way, I should tell you my opinion on women not being rabbis. You already know. Those of you who've learned here long enough know. To be a rabbi is the most useless thing in the world. The title is meaningless. Everybody who cares. Today you can get the title like mail order in smicha. You can get anywhere in the world you want to be a rabbi, you can be a rabbi. Rabbis are a dime a dozen. The one thing that nobody makes.
I got a solicitation the other day for a 6-month rabbi course.
You got a solicitation?
6 months.
You should do it just for the fun of it, but probably you could do it while you're sleeping. The story is that today everybody calls himself rabbi. It's so easy to be a rabbi, so it doesn't mean anything. To be a Talmid Chacham takes work. I always tell people, why are you wasting your time being a rabbi? Just be a Talmid Chacham. I tell women the same thing. If you know the Torah well, if you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know the Tanakh, you know the Mishnah, you know Talmud, you know Rambam, you know Shulchan Aruch, you know your Torah well, then what does somebody have on you that you don't have a title of rabbi? Psst. What do they matter? We know a Talmid Chacham from someone who's not a Talmid Chacham. And what stops you from being a Talmid Chacham? Nothing, just you. So the title really doesn't matter. And to the contrary, I must feel like the title is embarrassing, because if you would take your title rabbi and then look for the 15 nearest rabbis to you, you would be embarrassed to carry the title rabbi. And so minas tam, it doesn't mean anything anyways. But if that's the case, that you can't have authority, which rabbi has the kind of authority? They're comparing it to the sarah of a king, like a king makes decisions. Maybe if you would tell me that a woman cannot be a Hasidic Rebbe. Some of those Hasidic Rebbes, they're like kings. They wear gold, silver, they say things. Now, some of you might look at me like, they also have people who pull their strings, just different ways of pulling people's strings. But okay, let's judge them favorably. They're like the Pope in Rome. They're the king. Okay? In such a scenario, even then, a woman could be a Hasidic Rebbe, not just because historically she could. There were some women who led Hasiduyot. Famously, there was a woman, her name was the Maidel of Ludmir. Now, I don't know enough about her to tell you exactly how she wrote, but if you've never heard of the Maidel of Ludmir, you should look her up. I think her father was a student of the Magid of Mezrich. I think so. But she had a court, she held tish, she mamash, like Rebbes, she never got married, and that led for some interesting conversations around her. She moved to Israel, a complicated life. But at the end of the day, the reason why a woman could, yes, be a Hasidic Rebbe, someone tell me?
They're just spiritual figureheads. They're not.
No. But I mean, no. I just made the Rebbe a king. Don't make him not a king. No, I built him up to being a king. So don't give me a heter based on him not being anything. We could do that afterwards.
There's no culture jobs that they do. They don't usually they don't blame, they don't.
Okay, so you agree with Rabbi Binyamin, which is they don't do anything. So because of that, she could do that. I'll tell you, the prohibition of srara, authority, applies only in a situation where somebody has authority over somebody else, and that somebody else does not want their authority. Like a king. You don't have a say who is going to be the king. You didn't choose it. The king is the king because the king is the king. His father was a king, so he's a king, and now you are a subject. But when it comes to a chassidut, if you don't like your Rebbe, you just get up and go somewhere else. And so your Rebbe is only your Rebbe because you chose him to be a Rebbe. It's the reason why Harav Ben Sion Meir Chai Uziel says,
It's not that easy.
it's not that easy. You're right. That's true. Nechama is correct. Get up and leave a chassidut is complicated. But sometimes, hold on. Why, Nechama? Sometimes it happens for you. They do it for you. I'll give you an example. In my wife's family, we have chassidim, and I'm not going to say names, but half of them moved to 45th Street, another one to 48th Street, because overnight they became part of a different chassidut. Sometimes it is easy. They just cut you out just like that. But that could happen. It could happen even against your will. What I'm telling you is that when it comes to Harav Uziel, for example, had a major argument with Harav Kook. Harav Kook believed that women couldn't hold public office because it's sarah. And Harav Uziel said, that's an old-fashioned halakha. Not because women have more rights today than they used to have. Not what he's saying. Because today when people go to a democratic election and they elect a woman to lead them, that shows you the desire of the people is that this person should lead them. And therefore there is no issue of authority of a woman when the people want the authority of the woman. But I have once again deviated so far away from what I came here to talk to you about. I simply am sharing. The Chida says that a Bedin who knows that people will not listen to their rulings are exempt from having to rule over court cases. And I feel like that tells you a lot more about maybe it tells you both, about the Bedin and about the people. I was going to do one more halakha with you, but I feel that it's connected enough. I was going to continue here, the V'chen, right? We told you V'chen. I don't want to rush it. Now that you know this halakha, we're going to start next week with this halakha. For right now, I do want to wrap up what we studied today, and that is a twofold. One, it's very important that the judge remains impartial. So much so that even though he's actively involved in determining the law, the judge's one job is not to help one party over the other. But the moment the judge starts to get involved too much is the moment where the judge really, my children, they just finished their, they were doing football. Is that what they were doing now? Football? They finished their football league. I don't know the sports. I don't know which one falls out. But sometimes the kids come home, the referee was out to get us, the referee. And sometimes you have to accept that your team lost. Not always is the referee bad. Sometimes the team lost. And if a referee is good, the referee won't always pick on the same team. Now, I know they switch up referees and they get them from a third party, and I know. But at the end of the day, if people are feeling like the referee is getting involved, then sometimes the team might just decide to throw in the towel and lose. Like we've discussed in previous halachot, when the people who are parties to this court case, they feel that the judge is too involved on behalf of one person, even if they know they're innocent and they have compelling arguments, they might choose to be quiet because they feel in their mind they've already lost. Number two, it's very important to recognize that the manipulation of the law by lawyers may be necessary in the West. But in the East, where our Chachamim lived, it was not considered a good thing. We prefer honest, direct communication with the judges than to do it on our own, to do it through third parties, to hire other people to manipulate the law and present it for us. By the way, I would argue this is also part of what I spoke about the other Shabbat, about being part of a horizontal society, being part of a group of people where there is no vertical here. We're speaking to the judge, and the judge is speaking to me, and we're speaking in normal language, not in some complicated language that I can't understand, using some terms that I cannot comprehend. That's the whole purpose here. By the way, we would expect the same thing. We also, I know my video that I made the other week made a lot of people upset, but I learned a lot about the people who got upset. We don't speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through anybody. We speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly. And those of you who really know tefillah well, you know that those of us who pray, we don't even appreciate that sometimes we have to pray with a particular formula. Yes, we pray 3 times a day with a siddur, because that's the way we speak. But when we'd ask Rav Peretz, are you allowed to pray in your own words? Can you add in your own prayers? Can you put things in the tefillah that are not there? Because many rabbis say you can't. I'll quote you exactly from Rav Peretz. If you don't pray in your own words, then you have not fulfilled your obligation of tefillah today. This is absolutely correct. And by the way, I know Rabbi Nachman of Breslov alav hashalom brought out hitbodedut. You don't need that, though, to reach that conclusion. I respect that very much. It's not necessarily where I come from. But the idea of speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your own words, our Chachamim gave us a siddur as a framework to pray in, but not only to pray that. Don't limit yourself to mincha. When our Peretz used to walk in the streets and we were just quiet, he would pray. Sometimes pesukim, sometimes on his own. Very common in the mouth of our Peretz. I would say, and he would say, and he would say, speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu everywhere. Why only in the Beit HaKnesset? Why do you only talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu during Arvit? Why? What about before? What about after? During dinner? All the time. In your language. So you have to pray in Hebrew when you're in the Beit HaKnesset. You don't speak Hebrew? So pray in English the rest of the day. Pray in Spanish. Pray in Chinese. Pray whatever language you want to pray. The language that you feel close to. Same thing here, but Dayanim. L'havdil. And last but not least, that a public judge does not have the right to excuse himself from the problems of the community. And if you tell me that you are the leader of a community, but you have no control over the community, the question is, are you really the leader of the community? Nobody forced you to take the job. Nobody forced you to be the president or the prime minister. Nobody forced you to lead people. But if you are incompetent at leading people, if you don't take responsibility for the people that you lead, then are you really a leader? And this is something that everybody has to answer to. Next week, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to take apart the last 2 halachot that I have in the Mishneh Torah, in the laws of Sanhedrin, that are connected to midvar sheker tichak, to distance ourselves from falsehood. But for right now, I want to wish everybody a Laila Tov. Thank you so much for learning Torah with me.